Welcome in, everybody, to episode 9 of my Pro Unreal Engine developer tutorial series here on YouTube. Today, we're going to create our test environment, and then we are also going to create a placement frame animation for our character so that things will look okay when we start implementing our first-person character. I know last time I promised we were going to actually do some coding, and I've realized I should stop saying what's going to happen in the next episode because I'm constantly forgetting about things, and we need to do this before we make our character. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. And as always, we find ourselves in our Jira backlog. And as you can see, there are a couple of tasks up at the top. Create test environment and create placement frame animation. So pause and create those two tasks. Okay, so then now you can pause and fill out the description for create test environment. And as you can see, we need to create a test level and a couple of blueprints and throw it under that get started epic. And we can actually use the art label for this one as well as engineering because we're making a level. So that's technically art. Okay, so now you can pause here and copy this down. But basically, we're going to go into Blender and we're going to make a placement frame animation. And I'll show you guys what that is. So for this, the label is just art, and then you can also throw it under that get started epic as well. Alright, so once you have that all filled out, we can check both of them and drag them into our board. And then we go over to our board and we can throw create test environment into in progress. And we'll open up P4V. And yeah, I put two of these into one video because they're both relatively small. So you'll see that they're relatively quick. Alright, so we'll get into here and we'll make a new change list. And as always, we'll call it what we're calling the task in Jira. So create test environment. Alright, we have that all set. And we'll open up our solution and just build the project to make sure everything's fine. Always a good thing to do. Yeah, so close out of that sign-in stuff. There's no need to. And I finally remember to uncheck that show on startup thing. So hopefully that won't pop up anymore. And this should build relatively quickly. I had just built it before I recorded this, so should be pretty instant. There we go. So now we can open up our project. Okay, so we have our project open. We're checked into revision control. And just to show you what our test level is looking like now, we're on the third person map because we created this as a third person project. So we're going to make a new folder in the content folder, and we're going to call it 0_ CCS content. And the reason for the 0 is because this is sorted in alphabetical order, and we always want our folder to be in the front. So then we can make a new folder and call it maps. And why it's called maps when everything's a level, don't ask me, that's just the convention. So file, new level. And as you can see, we have a few options, and we want to pick basic. We don't need an open world for this project. Okay, so now File, Save As, and go into Maps. And we're just going to call this level underscore dev. Because this is going to be our test level, essentially. So now you can see we're automatically playing as the third person character. And I'll show you why in a moment. So we're going to make a new folder and we're going to call it core. And the meaning of core is basically this is the most important stuff in the game, so don't mess with it. Game framework. And we don't need that folder. And now we're going to make a blueprint. So right click, blueprint class, and we want to search for game instance, and we want to use that HSS one we have. And we want to call it BP underscore, and then whatever the name of the class is the naming convention. And as you can see, I'm just checking to see what I did with the organization of these blueprints and creators, just to stay consistent. So now we're going to make the game mode, and it's the same thing. So just HSS and call it BP underscore whatever the name is. Alright, so now we make a controllers folder. Okay, blueprint class. And we want player controller. And pick the HSS. Alright, looking good. And now we can go back to the game mode. And this is why the defaults were what they were. So you see here, we have a whole bunch of defaults, and we can pick the HSS option for every single one. So use the BP player controller. We can get rid of the HUD. And then for default pawn, for now, we'll just pick the third person character. And we can leave the spectator stuff alone. But yeah, if you see what I swapped out there, that's what you have to do. And then we'll go to Edit, Project Settings. And we're going to go to All Settings and search for Game Instance. And we want to swap that out for the blueprint that we made. So now we have our own game instance is the default game instance. And we have to press checkout file like I did there. And as you can see, the default game mode is already set, so we want to set it to our game mode. And see it puts what we had when we filled it out on the game mode. And now we want both of those maps to be level underscore dev. Just like that. And now we're going to search for maps. And there's this packaging field, list of maps to include in a packaged build. In this, we want to select our map that we made because we don't want to be including all the asset pack maps that we aren't going to use. Because it's just going to make the file size of our build bigger, and we want to avoid that. And now we can organize our map a little bit after we tested. And we can call this folder environment and just throw our floor in there. We already have a folder for lighting, so that's good. And we'll create a new folder called player starts. And drag our player start in there. And see, that's where we're spawning the player start. Alright, looking good. and play, and we're looking pretty good. So now we can go delete the build and review this. Okay, delete it, and we'll package this up. And I'll skip ahead until mine is done. Alright, and we're back, and our build was successful. So now we can test it out real quick. Yep, everything looks good. Alright, now we can close everything down and go into Perforce and submit everything. So it looks like it grabbed everything, so that's good. So we don't need to add everything manually like we usually do. So move all the files to our change list we have there, and then we can send it on its way. Now we'll go back to our board. We'll move this through review and to the bottom of done. And we'll add our little comment here saying that it's all done. And we can move the placement frame animation into in progress. And we can close down Visual Studio. We're not going to be needing it. And we want to open Blender 3.5. See, I told you there was a reason we installed that. And we're going to go into Hide, Seek, Survive and make a folder called Non-Engine Content. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be where we put our stuff that doesn't have to do with the engine. So we can make that documentation folder just for later, and then make an animation one. And we want another folder, and we're going to call it Export from Blender. And this again is exactly what it sounds like. It's where we're going to put all the animations that we make. And a little bit of indecision here for me, but we're not going to need a subfolder in here, because we're not going to have a ton of animations for this game. So that'll make things easier. Yeah, so pick general, and we can delete the cube and the light, and then we can save Control S. And we're going to navigate to that folder we just made, and we can keep it right here and just call it animations HSS. That's good enough. Alright, so now we need to do some organization. Just double click on that, and then you can change the name to camera. And the collections are basically folders. So right click, new collection, and then call it Manny, because that's where we're going to put our mannequin in. And then we press add Mr. Mannequin's templates and OK. And then here he is. So very exciting. We have our mannequin in here. And now we can move the camera. So to do that, we're going to click on our camera. And you see you need to click on the little picture of a camera. And we want that lens unit to be field of view. And set it to 80. Because that's what our field of view in-game is going to be. And by the way, go to Edit Preferences and emulate numpad if you don't have a numpad, because that's very important in Blender. So yeah, make sure you have that on if you don't have a numpad. Okay, so now we click that little button there on the side, and we want to edit the transform for the camera. And this, you just want to copy the values I have. So 0 in the X, 0 in the Y, and then 1.7 in the Z. And for rotation, we want 270X, 180Y, and 0 for Z. And now we can save, and you can see that's what our camera is going to be seeing in game. So it's very important as we press 0 to get the view of the camera. It's very important to be able to see exactly what we're going to be seeing in game when we're testing in here. So what we want to do now is click on that SK mannequin LOD0 and press tab. And this brings us into edit mode where we can actually edit the mesh. Because what we need to do is get rid of the guy's face so that we can see better from the camera. So up at the top, press the little wireframe button and then press a -X. And now you want to click and hold with the left mouse button to select and hold down shift and basically just select all the vertices as best you can above that neckline, like I did there. And just do your best, but make sure not to go too low. But as you can see, I don't have anything selected below the neckline. And if you screw up, just click away and start over. But then you want to press delete and then vertices. And then now we can go back to the regular shading. And as you can see, the head is no longer blocking our camera. And remember to save, so just Control S. So now we made the modification that we need to make, and now we can make our placement frame animation. So we want to click into the animation tab and press tab to get out of edit mode. Because now we're going to want to go into pose mode. And as you can see, we have the two different windows. And I like to have the window on the left be what the camera is seeing. So you just click over there and press 0, and that will accomplish that. And then we want to click on that UE4 mannequin skeleton and go into pose mode. And as you can see, we have these little things we can grab onto and move around. And that's why this plugin is so fantastic. So what we want to do is go to that little green picture, the guy running around, and pick the second one. So these little red guys. And to move them, you press G and then just kind of drag them around. You can move them in the X, Y, and Z direction by pressing GX, GY, or GZ. And the same thing works for rotating. So press R, and then you can do RX, RY, or RZ. And what we're trying to do here is just bring the hands into the camera, just so it looks okay. Because it's better for us to be able to see the hands when we're walking around. It just looks a little bit better. And don't worry about the elbows and stuff. We're going to fix that later. Just make sure the hands look as good as they can. And just play around with it until you're happy with what you see. Again, this doesn't have to be exact. So just take your time with it. and try to get an end result similar to what I have at the end. So yeah, just keep rotating it and just do your best. If you're unhappy with the results at the end, you can always go in and redo it. But sometimes it helps to look at a different angle. And as you can see, it's starting to look a lot better. Oh, and by the way, I realize I completely forgot to mention the way I'm rotating the camera like that is holding down the middle mouse button. But yeah, don't be discouraged if I'm doing this in like half the time it's taking you. I've been working with Blender for years, so I probably have more experience than you do. But on the other end, there are people who have been working with Blender for 20 years. Maybe not 20, I don't know how old it is. But my point is that this is a very complicated software, so don't get frustrated and just take your time with it. So as you can see, we have a pretty good result there. And the two little balls in the back are what you have to turn to get the elbows to shift. So you'll see them, they're behind each elbow. And I think I'll fix it right here. But if you look at the camera, our result is looking pretty good now. Because you don't want the hands to take up too much of the viewport, because you want the player to be able to see what they're actually looking at. And so see, I grab that one behind and it moves the elbow. So that's looking pretty good. And I think that's good enough, honestly. So again, feel free to pause the video at this point and just keep playing around with it until you're happy. So we want to go to the action editor instead of the dope sheet and press that fake user button, and we're going to call this placement frame. And now we want to select all the plugin layers by pressing shift and then clicking on all of them. And then we press A for all, and then right click, insert keyframe, and we want location and rotation. So now we're locked in on that frame. So if we get rid of that, you can see we have a whole bunch of data saved for the positioning of the different bones of the skeleton. And as you can see, I decided I wanted to tinker with this a little bit more. But quite honestly, this is one of those things you could spend 10 hours in here making it look absolutely perfect. But what we have is probably good enough. Again, the main thing is you just want to make sure it doesn't block the view of the player. And don't worry about like actually making it move. We're going to do that later. For now, we just need a single placement frame and that'll be good enough. All right, so just control S and we're looking good. And now we want to press A, insert keyframe, location, and rotation. Because to get it to save, you have to insert a new keyframe. So just saving the file isn't enough. But then we want to go to File, Export, and we want to pick Mr. Mannequin's FBX. And then we're going to go to Folders, Hide, Seek, Survive, Non-Engine Content, Animation, and then Export from Blender, and Accept. And just keep the default options. And press OK. And congratulations, you exported your first animation. So we go to make sure that it actually worked. And you have to be clicked onto that UE4 mannequin skeleton to make it actually export. So if that is what you're seeing, make sure you're clicked on UE4 skeleton. So we can close it down, and now we can open up hide seek survive and import this. And as we said in the description, we're not going to be applying this animation to anything. We're just going to import it and look at it in the engine, and we'll call this done. So we're in the content folder, and we make a new folder called characters, and another folder called animations. And we want to make another one called human. And another one called upper body. And another one. See a little indecision. But another folder and call it raw. And this is the folder we're going to be putting our animation in. So we can click into there after I make sure this is what I want. And you can use the in-engine import tool, but I tend to like to just find it in File Explorer and drag it right in. Alright, so here you have to click on skeleton, and you want to pick the UE4 one. So see game characters mannequin UE4 meshes. That's the one you want. And then just press import all. And as you can see, we click into it, we have our animation. So see, that's exactly what we made. And now it's in the engine. So pretty cool, right? And again, we can move it into review. But yeah, I can't stress enough how much easier that Mr. Mannequin Tools plugin makes things. So shout out to Jim Groovy. And we delete the hide seek survive builds. But yeah, without that, it would be so difficult to make just the easiest little animation like that. And we package up the project. And I will skip ahead until my packaging is done. Alright, so we're all packed up here. And we can now test. Yeah, so everything's looking fine. That animation shouldn't impact anything, but it's still good to check. And now we're going to have to add a few things. Because as you can oh, I forgot to make a change list. No big deal, we can do it now. And again, just call it whatever the task is. And we need to add the non-engine content folder. So navigate to that and do mark for add, and we'll pick that new change list. And as you can see, we have the original FBX and the two blend files. The reason there are two is because it's essentially a backup. And we'll submit that. We can move this over to done after we leave a comment just saying all set in the change list. Alright, so now we'll move it over to done. And we can call it a day. So yeah, that's it for episode 9. And in the next one, I'm not going to promise what we're going to do, like I keep doing and lying to you guys. But hopefully, we're going to make our character blueprint, and you'll be able to see that placement frame animation you made in game. So that'll be pretty cool. So, as always, thank you so much for watching, and please like the video and leave a comment to let me know any feedback you have. The engagement with the videos really helps more people find them, and I want as many people as possible to see these because right now in the Unreal community, there isn't a lot of content like this that isn't a paid course. So, like the video, leave a comment, and help save some people some money. And also subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with this series. My plan moving forward is to release one of these on Wednesday and Saturday, so it'll be 2 a week. And that's the plan moving forward indefinitely. So stay tuned for that. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.